The shouting at the auction yard had already died down when Lydia Marston did the unthinkable. She raised her hand calmly, almost coldly, right as the man on the block lifted his head, revealing a face cut from trouble itself. Sweat on bronze skin, jaw clenched, eyes so intense they looked like they refused to obey anyone. No one expected a widow, especially this widow, to bid on a slave like him. The crowd froze, even the auctioneer stuttered, because men like Cashin weren't bought for field work, they were bought for reasons whispered behind closed doors. Lydia felt the weight of 100 stares burning through her black dress, but her voice never shook. 120, a gasp. Someone muttered, "Does she know what she's doing?" Someone else hissed, "She's gone mad since her husband died." But Lydia didn't hear any of them. Her eyes were locked on Cashin, who stared back with a mixture of anger, confusion, and something else, something sharp, something dangerous. And for the first time since her husband's death, Lydia felt alive. Cashin was led off the block and chained, but even in chains, he looked like he could break the world in half if he wanted. The guards feared him, the men envied him, the women couldn't stop staring, and the widow, she couldn't breathe. Not because he was beautiful, though he was undeniable, but because of the way he looked at her. Like he could see right through her respectable mask, right through the mourning, right through the loneliness, like he already knew why she had bought him. Hours later, when he was brought to her carriage, Cashin refused to look at her. His hands were bound, his shirt torn, his voice low and rough. "You shouldn't have bought me," he said without lifting his eyes. Lydia swallowed. "Why not?" "Because I'm not the kind of man a woman like you should have near her." She felt her pulse spike. This wasn't a warning, it was a spark. "Look at me," she said softly. He didn't, so she stepped closer, closer than a widow should be to a slave she just purchased, closer than a woman should be to a man she wasn't supposed to desire. When he finally lifted his eyes, her breath caught. There was fire in him, heat, defiance, and something unspoken simmering beneath all that anger, the kind of thing that destroys reputations and shatters self-control. Back at the Marston estate, the servants whispered as Lydia brought him inside. Her late husband's sister, Agatha, rushed over in pure outrage. "A man like that does not belong under this roof. Lydia, what have you done?" Lydia didn't flinch. "Exactly what I intended," she said, brushing past her. Cashin caught the words and the faint smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. When they reached the corridor leading to his quarters, Lydia opened the door and paused. "Cashin," she said, her voice lower than before, "you're safe here. No one will harm you." He stared at her, confused. "Why? What do you want from me?" The question cut through the air like a blade. Lydia stepped into the dim light, her breath trembling. She didn't touch him, but the space between them felt electric. "Maybe," she whispered, "you'll understand in time." And then, just as she turned to leave, Cashin did something reckless, something forbidden. He reached out and gently caught her wrist. Their eyes locked, their breathing synced, and for a moment the world was silent. A widow and a slave, a secret already forming.
A storm about to begin. "Careful," Lydia whispered, not pulling away. "Someone might see." Cashin's voice dropped. "Maybe I want them to." Before we continue with our story, I'd like to ask, if you're fascinated by these tales that blur the line between historical fact and legend, please subscribe to our channel and hit the notification button so you never miss a story. Please leave a comment telling us which town or city you're watching from. We love to know where a community of mystery seekers is located. Now, let's continue. The rain came in the night, hard against the windows, loud enough to make the old Marston house feel alive. Cashin lay awake in the small room Lydia had assigned him, staring at the ceiling beams, listening to every distant thunderclap. He wasn't used to soft beds, warm rooms, or roofs that didn't leak. But what kept him awake wasn't comfort, it was her. He replayed the moment he'd reached for Lydia's wrist, the softness of her skin, the shock in her breath, the way her pulse quickened under his fingers. He hadn't meant to touch her. It had been instinct or madness, maybe both. Footsteps sounded in the hall. He sat up immediately, muscles tense. The door creaked open. It was Lydia, wrapped in a dark robe, her hair slightly undone, as if she'd been pacing her room for hours. Cashin stood. Is something wrong? She hesitated in the doorway, the lantern in her hand casting warm light across her face. I couldn't sleep. Cashin watched her carefully. Widows didn't come to slaves' rooms in the middle of storms, not respectable ones, not women who cared about reputations. "What do you need from me?" he asked quietly. She stepped inside and closed the door behind her. "That's just it," she whispered. "I don't know." Lightning flashed, illuminating her eyes, filled with fear, longing, confusion, and a desire she was trying so hard not to admit. Cashin took one breath and forced himself to stay where he was. "Lydia, you shouldn't be here." "Then tell me to leave," she said. He couldn't, and she knew it. She moved closer, each step heavy with tension. When she reached him, she lifted her hand slowly toward his cheek, but stopped inches away. Her voice broke. I don't want to make a mistake," she whispered. Cashin's jaw tightened. "You already did. You bought me." The words hit her hard, but he wasn't finished. "And now you're here. I don't think you came because of a mistake." Her breath trembled. "Cashin, if anyone finds out—" "They won't," he said, stepping closer, closing the tiny space left between them, "unless you want them to." Thunder shook the walls. Lydia's fingers brushed his chest. Cashin closed his eyes for a moment, fighting every rule, every warning, every instinct telling him this could ruin both their lives. Her voice was barely a whisper. I don't feel alive around anyone except you." He opened his eyes, and everything inside him snapped. He reached out, slow, deliberate, and cupped her face, his thumb tracing the line of her cheek. Lydia gasped softly, leaning into his touch as if she'd been starving for it. But before he could pull her closer, before the storm outside could drown out their breath, a sharp knock shattered the moment. Lydia jerked back, eyes wide with terror. The door shook again. "Lydia?" Agatha's voice pierced through the wood. "Are you awake? I heard movement." Cashin's heart pounded as Lydia's face drained of color. Agatha rattled the door handle. "Why is this one locked?" Lydia panicked, whispering, "Cashin, don't speak." She rushed to the door, smoothing her robe, wiping the trembling from her hands. She forced her voice steady. "I'm awake, Agatha. I'm checking on the house. The storm disturbed me. Why are you in the servants' quarters?" Lydia froze. Cashin intensed, ready to lie, ready to do anything to protect her, but he stayed silent like she had begged. Lydia stammered. "I thought I heard a window rattling, that's all." Agatha didn't sound convinced. "The slaves can handle that. Go back to your room." Lydia forced a calm breath. "Of course." Agatha lingered for a long, dangerous second. Then her footsteps retreated down the hall. Lydia let out the breath she was holding. Cashin's voice was low, rough, inches behind her. "You shouldn't risk yourself for me." She turned to him slowly. "Maybe that's the problem," she said. "I don't feel like it's a risk." And despite the storm, the fear, the danger, Cashin felt something warm and terrifying move through him, something he'd sworn never to feel for anyone in this house. Lydia stepped closer again, but this time she didn't touch him. She just looked up at him, as if she were fighting herself. "We can't stay like this," she whispered. "Something has to give, and soon." Cashin didn't move. He didn't have to. The storm outside raged, but the real storm was just beginning. The storm ended by dawn, but the plantation woke under a heavy, suspicious silence. Cashin stepped outside early, wanting distance from the room Lydia had visited, distance from the thoughts that kept him awake long after the thunder died. But distance didn't help. He could still feel the warmth of her breath, the tremble in her voice, the way she'd almost kissed him without saying the words. What he didn't expect was to find Agatha standing near the courtyard, arms folded, watching him with hawk-like suspicion. She didn't speak, not at first. She just stared at him as if she already knew something she wasn't supposed to know. "You're not like the others," she finally said. "I can see that." Cassian said nothing. Agatha stepped closer. "Men like you cause trouble, especially for women like Lydia." His eyes narrowed. "I don't know what you mean." "Oh, you do," she smirked. "So let me be clear. My brother may be dead, but this house is still mine to protect. I'll be watching you." She walked away with a sharp turn of her skirts, leaving Cassian alone with the weight of her threat. He hated the feeling in his chest, not fear, but the fear of what Agatha might do to Lydia. He'd survived chains, beatings, and the cruelty of men with far more power, but this was different. This was a danger he couldn't fight with strength, and he knew Lydia wouldn't stop coming near him. She felt too deeply, wanted too much, and she wasn't as good at hiding it as she thought. Later in the morning, Lydia found him alone in the stable yard, working silently. She approached him carefully, her voice low. "Cassian, about last night." He didn't let her finish. "You can't come to my room again," he said. Her breath caught. "Are you angry with me?" "No," he said. "I'm trying to keep you safe." Lydia looked around, making sure no one was close, then stepped nearer, so close he could feel her warmth through the morning air. "You think I'm safe now?" she whispered. "Agatha is already suspicious." Cassian clenched his jaw. "That's exactly why you need to stay away from me." She shook her head slowly. "I don't want to." The honesty in her voice, soft, fragile, unguarded, sent a shiver down his spine. "Lydia?" She reached out, hesitating for only a breath, then touched his hand. Her fingers slid into his, trembling with longing and fear. Cassian exhaled hard, fighting the urge to pull her into him. "You said something has to give," she whispered. "Maybe this is it." Before he could stop her, she leaned in just slightly and pressed her forehead to his forearm, hiding her face from the world. Cassian closed his eyes. This woman was going to ruin him, and he was going to let her. His hand lifted almost without permission, brushing her hair softly. Lydia's breath trembled against his skin, but a shout from across the yard snapped them apart. "Cassian, widow!" Marston. They turned to see Barnaby, the plantation overseer, striding toward them. Barnaby was a tall, coarse man with a bad temper and a worse sense of loyalty, not to Lydia, but to Agatha. Barnaby stopped in front of them, eyes darting between their faces. "Is everything all right here?" he asked, too casually. Cassian stepped back. Lydia forced a calm look. "Yes," she said. "Cassian was just reporting about the stable repairs." Barnaby's gaze lingered on Cassian too long, then on Lydia, then back on Cassian. "Well," Barnaby said slowly, "Agatha wants a word with you, Widow Marston." Lydia felt her stomach drop. "Now?" she asked, trying to hide the unease creeping into her voice. "Now," Barnaby repeated. He walked away without waiting. Lydia turned to Cassian, her voice barely a breath. "She knows something." He stepped closer, speaking quietly but firmly. "Then you need to act like you don't care about me." Her eyes filled with something between fear and pain. "I can't pretend that." "You must," he said, "for both of us." She swallowed hard, not at once, slowly, then forced herself to walk away before anyone could see the truth in her eyes. Cassian watched her go, and for the first time since Lydia Marston stepped into his life, he felt truly afraid, not of being punished, not of chains, but of what Agatha might do if she discovered how Lydia really felt. Lydia entered the drawing room with her heart beating at a painful rhythm. Agatha sat by the tall window, a porcelain teacup in her hands, staring out toward the fields. She didn't look at Lydia until the door clicked shut. "You were out early?" Agatha said without turning her head. "I was checking the property," Lydia replied, keeping her voice steady. Agatha finally looked at her, sharp, cold eyes that saw too much. "You were near the stable yard with him?" Lydia's fingers tightened behind her back. "He's assigned there." "Assigned?"
Agatha scoffed. "He's barely been here a day, and already you're what, inspecting his work personally?" Lydia felt heat rise in her chest, anger, fear, and the urge to defend Cashin, but she kept her voice even. Cashin is capable. The stable roof needed repairs, and he was the strongest worker available. Agatha slowly set her teacup down. "I don't believe you." Lydia inhaled sharply, but Agatha stood before she could speak again. "I know grief changes people," Agatha said, walking closer, each step deliberate and icy. "But don't embarrass this family. You bought a man who draws looks wherever he goes. He is not like the others. There's something dangerous about him." Lydia's heartbeat stumbled. "Dangerous?" "Strong," Agatha corrected, "defiant, and far too handsome for a woman in mourning to be spending time with." The words hit like a slap. Lydia forced a breath. "You're overthinking this." "No," Agatha said, leaning in slightly. "You're underestimating what people will say." Lydia held her ground, but inside her panic twisted into something hot and determined. Agatha saw it, and her eyes narrowed. "And whatever curiosity you have toward him," she said,
Dismiss it and keep your distance. Do you understand me? Lydia didn't answer. Agatha didn't wait for one. She left the room with stiff, confident steps, certain she had issued a final warning, but Lydia wasn't listening anymore. Her mind was already running toward Cashin. Cashin didn't stay in the yard. He moved between tasks silently, his thoughts heavy. He felt eyes on him everywhere. Agatha's suspicion had spread like poison. Even the other slaves looked uneasy around him now, sensing trouble that hadn't yet surfaced. He was cutting wood by the back fence when Lydia appeared, breathless from walking fast, but trying to look composed. "You shouldn't be here," he said immediately. She stepped closer anyway. "Agatha questioned me. I know," he said. "Barnaby's been watching me all morning." Lydia took a shaky breath. "She told me to stay away from you." Cashin looked down at her, jaw tight, eyes conflicted. Maybe she's right. Her chest tightened. "Is that what you want?" He didn't answer. She moved closer, her voice low and trembling. "Cashin, ever since I brought you here, I haven't felt anything like this in years, not even before my husband passed. You make me feel—" He cut her off, stepping closer so fast she froze. "Lydia, don't say things you can't protect." "I can protect them," she whispered. "I can protect you." He shook his head. "Not from Agatha. Not from this place." She reached for his hand again, risking everything, but he caught her wrist gently before she could touch him. His voice softened, rough and pained. "If they see you caring for me, they'll use it against us." "I don't care," she said, her voice cracking. "Cashin, I can't pretend anymore." He closed his eyes, trembling slightly, fighting everything inside him. "Lydia, I want you. I won't lie about that." Her breath caught. "But wanting you will destroy us both." Lightning didn't strike, but it felt like it did. The wind moved through the trees behind them, as if the plantation itself was listening. Lydia stepped closer, inches from him. "Cashin, please." He opened his eyes, looked at her, looked into her, and for one dangerous, breathless second, he leaned down. If he closed that inch between them, everything would change. Everything. But before lips could touch, a sharp whistle cut through the air. "Cashin!" Barnaby's voice roared from across the yard, loud enough for anyone to hear. "Get back to the milling shed." Cashin stiffened, pulling back instantly. Lydia stepped away, face burning with fear and longing. Barnaby strode closer, eyes suspicious, jaw clenched. "Widow Marston," he said with a tense nod. "Best not distract the workers." He didn't say more, but Lydia heard everything he meant. Cashin lowered his gaze and walked away, shoulders rigid, muscles tight, not daring to look back. Lydia stood alone in the yard, heart pounding, the space between them still charged with the kiss that almost happened. But the moment was gone, stolen, interrupted, and the danger was closer than ever. She turned slowly toward the house, realizing something terrible. Her feelings were no longer a secret, and if Agatha sensed even a fraction of what passed between her and Cashin, someone was going to burn. Night fell heavy and restless over the Marston plantation. Lydia couldn't sit still. She paced her room back and forth, replaying every moment with Cashin, his confession, his closeness, the kiss they almost shared.
The way Barnaby appeared at the worst possible moment. She kept touching her wrist where he'd held her. Her skin was still warm, but the truth weighed on her chest like a stone. Agatha was not going to let this go, and Lydia wasn't sure she could stop herself anymore. Outside, the workers finished their tasks for the day. Lanterns flickered near the milling shed, shadows moving like silent warnings. Cashin finished last. He walked out into the night air, muscles sore, mind in turmoil. He couldn't forget Lydia's eyes, full of need, fear, and something he had no right to feel in return. He should have kept his distance, and yet he found himself walking toward the orchard behind the house, a quiet corner where Lydia sometimes escaped to breathe away from Agatha. He didn't expect to find her already there. She sat beneath the old oak tree, her white shawl wrapped tightly around her shoulders. When she saw him emerge from the darkness, her breath hitched. "Cashin?" He looked around sharply. "It's not safe for you to meet me here." "I don't care anymore," Lydia whispered. "I'm tired of pretending." He approached cautiously, but she reached for his hand before he could pull away. This time he didn't stop her. He sat beside her beneath the tree, their bodies close in the dim glow of the moon. For a moment the world was painfully quiet. Then Lydia spoke, her voice soft but breaking. "Agatha won't rest until she tears you from this house. She hates anything she can't control." Cashin scoffed softly. "I've dealt with worse." "You haven't dealt with her," Lydia said. "She's different. She knows exactly how to ruin a life without ever lifting a finger." He turned to her, brows lowered in concern. "What did she say to you?" Lydia swallowed hard. "That I'm embarrassing the family, that I should stay away from you, that a widow spending time with a man like you looks suspicious." Cashin held her gaze. "And what do you think it looks like?" Lydia inhaled shakily. "Like something I can't stop wanting." The words hit him like a blow. He leaned closer, unable to fight it anymore, his voice rough and low. "Lydia, you're playing with fire." "Then let it burn," she breathed. The distance between them evaporated. Cashin cupped her face with both hands this time, not caring about consequences, not caring about Agatha, not caring about anything except the woman trembling beneath his touch. Lydia let out a soft gasp, leaning forward. A twig snapped. Cashin froze. Lydia's breath caught in her throat. Then a shadow emerged from behind the tree line. Barnaby. His expression twisted into something dark and triumphant. "Well, well, well," he said, stepping into the moonlight. "What do we have here?" Lydia shot to her feet. "Barnaby, this isn't—" "Spare me," he said, eyes locked on Cashin with pure venom. "I warned Agatha something was off. She didn't believe me." Cashin rose slowly, shoulders broad, muscles tight, ready for a fight he couldn't win. "Barnaby, you don't understand." "I understand perfectly." Barnaby smirked. "The widow and her slave. Shameful." Lydia's face went pale. "Barnaby, if you say a word—" "Oh, I'll say more than a word," he spat. "Agatha will want to hear every detail." Panic clawed through Lydia's chest. "Barnaby, please listen to me." But Barnaby's eyes slid back to Cashin, filled with hatred. "You think you can walk around here like you own the place, like you can touch what isn't yours?" Cashin stepped forward, voice steady but icy. "Don't twist this." Barnaby barked a laugh. "Twist? I'm not twisting anything. I'm telling the truth, and that truth is going to cost you your life." Lydia stumbled toward Barnaby, desperate. "No, please, Barnaby. If you report this, they'll punish him." "Good," Barnaby snarled. Cashin's hands balled into fists. Lydia's breath broke. "Barnaby, I'll pay you. Anything. Just don't tell Agatha." Barnaby's eyebrows shot up. "Anything?" Lydia hesitated. Cashin stepped in front of her instantly. "No, you don't bargain with him." Barnaby smirked darkly. "Seems like your new pet speaks for you now." Lydia grabbed Cashin's arm, shaking with fear. "Cashin, stop! Please let me handle this." But Barnaby wasn't listening. He stepped closer, voice dripping with cruelty. "A widow sneaking around with a slave? What will the town say? What will the court say? You'll lose everything." Lydia's voice cracked. "Barnaby, please!" Barnaby turned, starting back toward the house. "I'm telling Agatha." Lydia's heart shattered. Cashin grabbed Lydia's hand. "Lydia, go back inside. Stay safe." "What are you going to do?" she whispered, terrified. "Whatever I must," he said. And then Barnaby shouted loudly toward the workers' quarters, enough for everyone within earshot to hear. "Agatha, you need to see this!" Lydia's scream was silent. Cashin's fate had just turned, and now the whole plantation was about to know. Barnaby's shout cracked through the night like a gunshot. Cashin moved on instinct. He grabbed Lydia's hand and pulled her deeper into the orchard, away from the lanterns, now flickering toward the commotion. Lydia's breath came fast and shaky, eyes wide with panic as voices rose from the house. "Cashin, what do we do? Barnaby's going to ruin everything." "I know," he said sharply, still pulling her through the trees. "That's why you need to hide." "No, you need to hide," she whispered urgently. "If they see you anywhere near me, they'll say everything they want to say anyway." She stopped him with both hands on his chest. Her voice cracked. "I won't let them hurt you." He cuffed her face, thumb brushing her cheek in a moment that should have been tender, but instead felt like a goodbye. "Lydia, listen to me. I'm not afraid of Barnaby, but I am terrified of what Agatha will do to you if she thinks you're protecting me." Lydia swallowed hard, her heart twisting painfully. "If I lose you," she whispered, "what's left for me?" Cashin leaned his forehead against hers, their breaths mixing in the cold night. For a second they just stood there, two hearts beating wildly in the shadows, the world collapsing around them. Then a lantern glowed through the trees. "Lydia!" Agatha's voice sliced the darkness, cold, sharp, too close. Cashin gently pushed Lydia behind him, shielding her instinctively. Agatha stepped into the clearing, holding a lantern high, her expression unreadable, but her eyes sharp with suspicion and something worse. Barnaby followed behind her, breathing hard like he'd run all the way from the house. Agatha's gaze moved from Cashin to Lydia, then back to Cashin. "What," she said slowly, "is going on here?" Lydia stepped forward before Cashin could speak. "Agatha, please, this isn't what it looks like." "Oh," Agatha tilted her head, "because Barnaby assures me it looks exactly like what it appears." Barnaby crossed his arms smugly, caught them together, talking close, whispering. She was holding his hand. Lydia's throat tightened. "That's a lie." "Is it?" Agatha whispered coldly. Lydia opened her mouth, then faltered. The truth sat heavy on her tongue. She didn't know what to say that wouldn't make things worse. Agatha turned to Cashin with an alarming calm. "You speak." Cashin lowered his head, refusing to drag Lydia into danger. "I was reporting a broken fence panel, ma'am. The widow came to check the area, that's all." Barnaby scoffed. "He's lying." Agatha's eyes narrowed. "The more you speak, Barnaby, the more eager you seem. Why?" Barnaby stiffened, clearly not expecting that response. Agatha turned back to Cashin.
"You do understand that the rules here are strict for a reason. A slave who disrespects a widow, especially one in mourning, brings shame to this family." Lydia trembled. "Agatha, he hasn't disrespected me." "And yet," Agatha interrupted, "you rush to defend him like a woman defending her lover." The words stabbed Lydia straight in the chest. Cashin's jaw tightened, a flicker of helpless fury crossing his face. Agatha took a slow step forward. "Lydia, tell me the truth right now. Do you have feelings for this man?" Time froze. Barnaby's grin stretched wider. Cashin's hands clenched. Lydia's breath quivered. Her mouth opened, but the words wouldn't come. Agatha's voice grew dangerously soft. "If you lie, I will know." Cashin whispered, barely audible, "Lydia, don't." But Lydia looked up, eyes filled with tears and defiance, and whispered the words that changed everything. "I do." Agatha's face hardened like stone. Barnaby let out a triumphant laugh. Cashin looked like someone had struck him. Agatha took one long, steady breath. "Then you are more foolish than I imagined." She pointed at Cashin. "Tomorrow morning he leaves this plantation." Lydia gasped, stepping forward. "No, Agatha, please don't do this." Agatha didn't flinch. "You have disgraced this family enough. If this man stays here, you will ruin yourself." Cashin stepped forward, voice deep and desperate. "Agatha, I beg you, don't punish her for my presence." "I'm not punishing her," Agatha snapped. "I'm protecting her. Removing you is mercy." Lydia grabbed Cashin's arm. "Agatha, please find it in your heart." "My heart," Agatha said, "is the only thing keeping this house from collapsing. You've lost your mind, Lydia, and I won't let you destroy what's left of our name." Cashin's fingers intertwined with Lydia's tightly, defying everyone, even in the lantern glow. Agatha's voice dropped lower. "Barnaby, tie him in the storehouse until morning. I'll decide where he goes at dawn." Lydia screamed, "No!" Cashin tried to pull away, ready to fight, but 10 more workers appeared behind Barnaby, all armed, all tense, all waiting. Cashin knew then, if he resisted, he'd be killed. He let go of Lydia slowly. She collapsed to her knees, sobbing uncontrollably, as Barnaby seized Cashin's arm with vicious satisfaction. Cashin looked at her one last time, eyes full of apology, pain, and something deeper, something that looked like love. "Lydia," he whispered, "don't give up on me." Then he was dragged away into the darkness. Lydia cried out his name until her voice broke. Agatha stood over her, breathing hard, lantern trembling in her grip. "This ends now," she said coldly. But Lydia didn't hear her. She was already planning something reckless, something impossible, something that could save Cashin or destroy them both. Rain hammered the roof of the manor long after midnight, but inside the great house a different kind of storm was brewing. Luciana paced her bedroom like a hunted animal. The walls felt smaller, tighter. Every candle flickered with a warning. Every shadow looked like a witness. Her mother's voice echoed in her head. "You think you can hide love in a house this old? Love makes noise. Love leaves footprints." And the truth was, it did. It left fingerprints on her skin. It left bruises of longing on her chest. It left Tobias's scent on her pillows. She pressed a hand to her mouth, as if trying to quiet her own heartbeat. The worst part wasn't fear of exposure. It was fear of losing him.
Downstairs, Tobias had been locked inside the storage shed. Elena's order, not punishment, but protection. If Cornelius somehow learned where Tobias truly was that night of the fire, Tobias could be hanged without trial. Luciana couldn't sleep. She couldn't sit. She couldn't breathe. Finally, she slipped out of her bedroom, wrapped a dark shawl around her shoulders, and made her way silently toward the back courtyard. Rain fell and slanted, biting sheets that soaked her within seconds, but she didn't stop. She crossed the gravel path, reached the wooden shed, and pressed her ear against the door. "Tobias," she whispered. A faint rustle answered, then his voice, low, strained. "Luciana." She pushed open the door, stepped inside, and shut it behind her. The tiny oil lamp at his feet cast just enough light to paint his face in soft gold. He was sitting on the floor, shirt wet from the leak in the roof, arms resting on his knees, and even now, even trapped, tired, hunted, he looked unshakably strong. His eyes warmed the moment they found hers. "You shouldn't be here," he said. "I can't leave you alone," she replied, her voice breaking. "Not tonight." Tobias stood, gently brushing rainwater from her hair. "What did your mother say?" he asked. Luciana swallowed. "She suspects us." He froze. "Then you have to stay away from me. If she tells Cornelius, she won't, Luciana said fiercely. She may hate what I feel, but she won't hand you to him. Tobias shook his head. She's protecting you. I'm the danger in this story, Luciana. I'm the one who could be taken, and you'd never forgive yourself. She stepped closer, gripping the front of his shirt. You're not the danger, she whispered. You're the only thing in this house that feels right. He exhaled, a shudder running through him, and his hands rose to her waist as if pulled by instinct. The room felt too small for the heat between them, too quiet for the thunder in their chests, too dark for the truth in their eyes. Tobias rested his forehead on hers. If someone catches us, he whispered. Then let them, Luciana breathed. I'm tired of pretending I don't love you. Those words hit him like a bolt. His breath caught, his hands tightened around her waist. Luciana, don't say that unless you mean it. I do, she said. I've never meant anything more. A moment of stillness followed, one heartbeat of pure, vulnerable truth. Then Tobias pulled her into a kiss that swallowed every fear, every consequence, every rule she'd ever been raised to follow. It was deep and desperate, the kind of kiss that tasted like danger and salvation at the same time. Rain pounded the shed roof. Somewhere in the distance a horse neighed sharply. Thunder rolled across the sky. When they broke apart, breathless, Tobias cupped her face. If we're found out, he warned, I'll be dragged away before you can even scream. Luciana gripped his hand. Then we run, she said. You and me, we leave this place forever. Tobias stared at her, unable to breathe for a moment. Luciana, do you know what you're saying? I know exactly what I'm saying. She stepped back, lifting the hood of her soaked shawl. Mother is planning something, she whispered. Something involving you. I saw the way she looked at you, the way she asked questions. Tobias frowned. What kind of questions? Luciana hesitated, but only for a second. Questions about whether you would ever hurt me, whether you're loyal to me, whether her voice throbbed.
Whether I'm attached to you? Tobias stiffened, his gaze hardened, protective and alert. She's testing the walls, Luciana said, trying to see if there's a crack. And she found one, he whispered. Luciana nodded. Tobias reached for her hands, lacing his fingers between hers. Then we need a plan, he said quietly. A new sound cut through the rain, a heavy door slamming, then footsteps, fast, purposeful, growing louder. Luciana's breath caught. Someone's coming. Tobias blew out the lamp instantly, plunging them into darkness. The shed door rattled, then a voice cut through the rain like a blade. Luciana, are you in there? Luciana's blood froze. Tobias whispered, barely audible. That's your mother. The shed shook with every step Lydia's mother took. Rain hammered the roof, thunder rattled the walls, but nothing could drown out the sound of Luciana's racing heart. Tobias pressed close to her, hands gripping hers as if he could shield her from everything, even her own mother. The door burst open. Light from the storm outside flooded the small space. Agatha's shadow loomed, lantern swinging wildly, eyes burning with fury and fear. Barnaby followed close behind, his expression twisted with triumph and satisfaction. You thought you could hide from me? Agatha's voice cut through the darkness. You dare defy me in my own house? Lydia, standing taller than she felt, stepped forward. I won't hide, not anymore. Tobias stiffened, his eyes narrowing, muscles coiling like a predator ready to strike. Stay back, he said to the intruders. Agatha laughed, a cold, sharp sound that sliced through the tension. You think you can protect her? You, a slave? You are nothing in my house, Tobias. Nothing. Lydia's chest tightened. She's wrong, she spat. You're the strongest man I've ever known, and I'm not afraid of you or her.
Agatha froze for a fraction of a second. Never had a widow spoken to her like that. Never had a slave dared to stand there without flinching. The room seemed to shrink with the intensity of their defiance. Tobias stepped closer to Lydia, chest nearly touching hers. "Lydia, we have to leave now, before they separate us." "I won't run," she said, gripping his hand tightly. "Not without fighting." Agatha's expression hardened. "You think love protects you from me?" she hissed. "I've protected this house from far worse than both of you. I've watched men die for less. And you, she pointed at Tobias, will leave this place broken, or you will leave it in chains." Tobias met her glare steadily. "You can threaten me all you want, but I won't bow, not to you, not to anyone." Barnaby snorted. "Foolishness, both of you." The tension exploded like the storm outside. Tobias lunged forward, grabbing Lydia's hand and pulling her toward the back exit. Agatha screamed, rushing to block them, but Tobias moved faster, strength and desperation carrying him past her grasp. Lydia stumbled, heart hammering in terror and exhilaration. They burst into the rain-soaked night. Wind whipped their clothes. Cold rain soaked through everything, but they didn't stop. Behind them, the manor was alive with shouts and footsteps, but Tobias's grip was steady, unyielding. Lydia couldn't breathe for the thrill of it. "Where are we going?" she shouted over the storm. "Anywhere they can't find us," he yelled back. "We disappear or we die trying." Lydia's heart leapt in her chest. Fear, desire, love, all tangled together. They reached the tree line at the edge of the plantation, slipping between trunks and branches, shadows swallowing them. Agatha's lanterns bobbed behind, frantic and furious, but Tobias was fast. Lydia's hand in his felt like an anchor, grounding her, giving her courage.
Then they reached the river. "Here," Tobias said, breathless. "We cross. They won't follow." The water was icy, the current strong, but he waded in first, pulling her along. Lydia's shoes sank into the mud, her skirt heavy with rain, but she didn't falter. Tobias held her close, guiding her across the dark waters. They stumbled onto the opposite bank, soaked to the bone, but free for now. Lydia collapsed into his chest, sobbing and laughing all at once. Tobias's arms wrapped around her, holding her tight. The storm thundered above, but in that moment, they were the only two people alive in the world. "I thought I'd never see you again," she whispered. "You'll never lose me," he replied, pressing a kiss to her hair, to her temple, to the corner of her eye, anywhere he could touch without words. The storm started to calm. Lightning flashed one last time, illuminating their wet, muddy forms, and for a moment the world was breathtakingly beautiful. Danger, love, chaos, and freedom all mixed together. Lydia pulled back slightly, eyes shining through the rain. "What happens now?" Tobias smiled, a mixture of exhaustion, determination, and triumph. "Now we survive. Now we live together." And as they disappeared into the dark, endless woods beyond the plantation, leaving the storm behind, one truth was clear. Nothing, not Agatha, not Barnaby, not society, would ever keep them apart again. The widow and her most handsome slave had defied the world, and in doing so, had finally found themselves. If you believe justice always finds a way, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Share this story with someone who loves a calculated revenge. Comment below with the city you are watching from.